The subjunctive mood. Today we're going to delve deep into English grammar. This is truly advanced material, so you're in for an interesting ride if you're hungry for knowledge. Okay, let's get started. First question. Can you fall in love, start a project, and achieve your goals without ever using the subjunctive mood in English? By all means, all right? You can spend your life speaking very good English, by the way, without ever resorting to the subjunctive mood. Still, I am going to show you why it may be advisable to every now and then sprinkle some subjunctive on your English. So what is the subjunctive mood? Well, the dictionary entry is not really enlightening. It says that it's a form of a verb that represents a state that is contingent or possible, doubtful. In plain English, it's something that it's a form of a verb that we use to express something which is unreal, potential, something that we wish, a hypothesis, request, something along those lines. In contrast to the indicative, which is about things that do happen, things that do exist, the subjunctive is about wishes, dreams, desires, that sort of thing. The subjunctive mood is present in a few European languages, but to different degrees. For instance, in Spanish, it is really necessary. You can't speak Spanish without the subjunctive. I mean, not even intermediate Spanish. Just think about a negative imperative, don't do that. Just to say that, you need the subjunctive. So yeah, it's big in Spanish. In Italian and French, not so much. For instance, when I speak Italian or French, I try to talk around structures that demands the subjunctive, and very often I succeed. So it's important, but not as important as it is in Spanish. In German, it's even more infrequent. The conjunctive, okay, yes, it exists. You should know how to use it. But look at that. In English, is virtually vestigial. It's not really even necessary. Why? Because as we're about to see, English speakers have devised ways to avoid using the subjunctive, and they have succeeded because people don't like anomalies, and the subjunctive mood is an anomaly. So let's see. I thought that we might check out these two sentences in Spanish because they show how powerful the difference can be between something which is indicative and subjunctive. The second part of that sentence, iremos, is we are going. So that is a fact. We are going on a field trip, on an excursion, we don't know what. But look at that. Even though it's raining, okay, and even if it rains, in Spanish, that subtle difference between something which is a fact and something that might happen is expressed by means of one vowel. One vowel sound makes all the difference. So this is what I meant when I said that it is imperative for even intermediate speakers of Spanish to master the subjunctive. Yeah, it is raining. We don't know. It might rain. So bear this in mind because this is the underlying idea about the subjunctive. We don't know. It might happen. It might be the case. Maybe not. All right? So what are the verbs that take subjunctive in English? Not many, by the way, not many. Here you're going to see several. You will realize that they are all about wanting things or asking things or insisting, okay? Suggest I have marked in red because it's a particular case. We use suggest a lot, and that's probably one of the reasons why we have so many alternatives when it comes to combining it with other verbs. So I insist that, what is the subjunctive? She be present at the meeting. That's a subjunctive right there, she be. If you're not used to this, it looks like it's even wrong, but of course it's not. This is perfect grammar. I recommend that the matter be dropped. This is the spirit of the subjunctive. That be, it's of course the infinitive without to. That is how you conjugate the subjunctive. It is either this, very often it will be the past form, But those are two cases of, so you can say, I request that he be informed. That would be subjunctive, all right? Suggest, I said, is a kind of special because we have three alternatives. So you can use the subjunctive regularized, let's call it that. It looks regular, form or a modal verb, okay? The subjunctive would be, I suggested that he take. Obviously, again, that is subjunctive. Why? Because the subjunctive never takes the S. So it's he take, he go, he come, all right? The regular version of that would be I suggested that he took, all right, past. He took legal advice. It sounds, you feel more comfortable with that probably. And of course, you can use should, which by the way is a lot more common in European English. British English these days favors that should, whereas in the United States, they sometimes prefer structures and even words that by European standards sound a little older. But that is beside the point. The fact is that in America, you are more likely to hear the subjunctive than you are in Great Britain. So we have seen verbs, now adjectives that take the subjunctive. They all have the same underlying meaning: essential, imperative, important, crucial, all right? So typical thing to say, it is essential that you be, it is imperative that the Sildavian people be able to choose their future. We could, of course, paraphrase that and say it is imperative for the Sildavian people to be, okay? It is crucial that the prosecutor be informed about the victims and blah, blah, blah. As you can see, you have a choice. That's what I meant when I said it's not really necessary. But in the second case, we are clearly talking about a legal matter. A prosecutor is mentioned. So it might be appropriate for a legal document to resort to this higher form of grammatical correctness. And that higher form is the higher register. So we have the employers urged that the men return. That is a subjunctive. I know it doesn't look like it because the indicative form is the same, but in this case, stockholders demanded that the CEO give, okay, CEO is singular, we should expect an S, we don't get it, that is again subjunctive. So why do I mention the register? Because you can choose between that or should, that the men should return, which is probably the more British approach, okay? Return, should return. Here, give, we can choose between that he give, again, still subjunctive, or that he be more specific. In both cases, we remain in subjunctive territory. Do you perceive the difference between the men should return and something like that he be more specific? As I like to say, the choice is yours. It is really up to you what to say. Lest is an interesting conjunction. Look at this. It would be a mistake for governments to treat these concerns lightly, lest the seriousness of their commitment be. Lest demands the subjunctive, and there is no way around this. You don't like it? Well, you don't use lest, okay? This is not a case where you have an alternative. So lest he forget is obviously subjunctive because there is no S. Lest he forget that the Bhutanese flag features a dragon. Yes, there is no S. It means in order for him not to, or in order to prevent him from forgetting. Do you see how long it can get? How practical lest can be? I think that's a good enough reason for using lest. But of course, you should be aware that you're using the higher register of the language. And I know this is uncalled for and maybe as unnecessary as the subjunctive, but I love the Bhutanese flag, okay? It has a dragon, not many in the world. Yeah, the Welsh flag has a dragon, but I kind of prefer the Bhutanese flag. Sorry about that, I had to say that. It's time, or it's high time. High time would be emphatic, okay? Let's suppose you want to say, it's time to go to bed. So you can say, yeah, it's time to go to bed, or it is bedtime. And that way you avoid using any kind of subjunctive, all right? Few people like a grammatical anomaly, so everybody's happy and Jimmy goes to get some sleep. But of course you can also say it's high time You went to bed, and that is a subjunctive. So why do we need that? Because when you say it's bedtime, you're just stating a fact. It's, let's say, 10 o'clock in the evening. It's bedtime. But there is no nuance there. When you say it's high time you went, the implicit meaning is that it is a bit too late and that you should have gone to bed earlier. So it's more detailed information that you're putting across. And yes, I need to say that there is not a negative form. So you could not use the negative version of went, like it's high time you didn't go. No, that is not acceptable. That is clearly incorrect. As though, which is a slightly nicer form of as if, but they mean the same, presents us with an interesting case. She looks as though she were ill. Obviously subjunctive, but a lot of people prefer to say she acts like she is, indicative, for obvious reasons. All right, so again, you can choose. You want to be more stylish or maybe not. But if we look at these two examples here, you really have to know your grammar to realize that there is a very subtle difference between these two. When you say she looks as if she had been ill, you're talking about something that happened before now, okay? That is the reference. She looks present as if she had before now. Whereas when you say she looked as if she had been ill, you're referring to something that happened before some unspecified point in the past. In cases like this, you really need a fine-tuned ear. I'm just pointing that out because it's my job to tell you what is possible, what exists, all right? Fossilized expressions are the easy part of this because there is nothing to explain. You just have to accept it. You see the Queen and you know, God Save the Queen, the national anthem. Save is obviously a subjunctive. There is no S. Fair enough. Or you say, God bless you, as in when you sneeze. You can have the shortened version, bless you, but there is an unspoken subject. There is nothing to be explained about this. You just have to learn it like that. God save the Queen. A more interesting example we find in this is Princess Leia, and she says, may the force be with you. The question is that a subjunctive? Well, it feels like bless you. It feels like bless your heart, which, by the way, is a rather complicated expression. I mean, complicated to understand for foreigners. It's used in the South in the United States, and it's a double-edged sword. It may have two meanings. Let's not go there. The grammar of it is interesting because it's a subjunctive. We don't mention the subject. There is a subject there, which is God. But even with the subject, we say, God bless you. That would be subjunctive. Where is the S that we need for the third person? All right. Now, you can paraphrase that by saying, may God bless you, or may God bless your heart. And then we would not have a subjunctive form. This is not subjunctive. The spirit of the expression is, of course, subjunctive. We're talking about a desire, something that is potentially feasible or may happen in the future, but grammatically speaking is not a subjunctive. Okay? To have a real subjunctive, we should have something extremely similar, which is the force be with you. For whatever reason, the screenwriters of the Star Wars movies prefer to go for may the force, which, by the way, in my view, sounds more poetic. I like it better. I mean, this is kind of crude. The force be is may the force be with you. And may you enjoy happiness and that sort of thing. I love that. That is a real subjunctive. So, it's either princesses or witches or sorcerers, religious figures. They love expressions like this. I'm not going to explain them. You may come across them if you are exposed to the English language. These expressions, heaven forbid. All right, that's a reference to the gods up in heaven, so help me God. It used to be part of a formula uttered by witnesses whenever they were going to give evidence in the United States. I'm not sure that you actually have to say that. You may not be a religious person and therefore may not be comfortable with a reference to God, but it is a well-established formula, all right? Look them up in a dictionary and use them if you feel that you are in the right situation. A different case, more common, is the one we find in conditional sentences. This is upper intermediate stuff. Let's use Winston Churchill and Lady Nancy Astor to refresh your memory. A very well-known anecdote involves these two characters and a cup of coffee. Famously, Lady Astor said to Winston Churchill, "If you were my husband, I'd put poison in your coffee." To which he said, "Nancy, if you were my wife, I'd drink it." Anyway, just look at the grammar. We have two cases of subjunctive. They are talking about a hypothetical situation, which was obviously not the case. All right. And like that, we have many other conditional sentences. Let's look at this for a second. The one that we have up there, if I disliked every person who disagrees with me, I wouldn't like anybody. We could argue that this is a typical conditional sentence that refers to a hypothetical set of circumstances. A more elevated way of saying the same thing is if I were to dislike every person who disagrees with my views. And you can always go and say, were I to dislike. The inversion makes it even more formal. So we have three different options to express the very same meaning. I wish and if only belong to the intermediate level, so I will not elaborate on this. I wish I were 2 inches taller, but I am not. And if only you weren't married, but unfortunately you are. Okay, again, cases of subjunctive. I am going to show you this tricky example, this humble-looking expression, be it. That is a subjunctive form, of course. Imagine I say, "Welcome to our school. I'm sorry, I have bad news for you. I know you don't like foreign languages, but you have to pick one. Be it French or German, you have to choose a second language as a subject." That is obviously subjunctive. If you don't feel comfortable with the subjunctive and you say, "Well, I need a paraphrase," okay, you can paraphrase that by resorting to another subjunctive structure, whether it be. So you have to pick a foreign language, whether it be French or German, blah, blah, blah. That is, again, another subjunctive form. What if you don't even like that? You say, "It be it. I just want to say it is." Well, I got good news. You can say whether it is. And that's when you say whether it is French or German, you have to choose a foreign language as a subject. That is indicative. This is what many speakers feel at ease with and what they actually choose to use. So you can do the same thing, all right? But as you see, the menu is full of options. So allow me to give you a bit of a recap here. The subjunctive mood is present in several fixed phrases. It is not strictly necessary because you can always find alternative sentences that express the very same thing and feel natural and regular. So now you know what to do. Go out there and whenever you find yourselves in the right circumstances, use the subjunctive and the force be with you.